Welcome to Smart Talks by ThinkSport. Today we'll be talking about this thing called virtual cycling or digital cycling. What is this? Well, before answering the question, an important disclaimer, I'm most certainly the least qualified person to talk about this topic because I work for the UCI, cycling's governing body, for 20 years. However, I know very, very little about the virtual side of it, the esports side, because I'm now a bike guide, a photographer, a writer, and I ride my bike outside for real. I don't do indoor training. I do not own a smart trainer. I don't use a power meter, and I'm simply not a data freak. However, I'm a huge fan of the sport, and I love to watch racing on TV. And with COVID-19, I, like millions of fans around the world, was suddenly deprived of my favorite show. No April Classics, no Giro d'Italia that would be running right now. And at first there was just nothing. But very quickly we saw initiatives from the cycling world to fill the voids. And this was mostly about digital cycling. So what is it? Well, we are fortunate to have here on this talk a great panel of absolute experts who are all at the forefront of the digital revolution of the sports. So without further ado, I'll start by asking everyone to introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Ashleigh Moolman-Pasio. I'm a rider for the CCC Live women's team. I'm also founder and, if you'd like to call it, acting CEO of Rocacorba Cycling, which is a cycling tourism business in Girona, Spain. And interestingly enough, I actually also have a background in engineering. I have an engineering degree, so data and technology and things like that are quite interesting to me, although I also really love to ride outdoors and enjoy the beautiful scenery and race my bike in real life. So I'm very happy to take part in this webinar today.
Hi, so my name is Adrien de Cheveigné. I'm the digital manager for the UCI, meaning that I mostly deal with everything related to promoting cycling on digital platforms, mostly social and the UCI website as well, liaising with athletes, stakeholders to ensure that we make the best out of everything that's produced outside. And very keen on using a home trainer right now. I live in France, even though the UCI is based in Aigle, and I must say that for the past weeks, it has been a great escape to be on the home trainer and on digital cycling for a few days.
Hi, yes, I'm Douglas Ryder. I'm the team principal of NTT Pro Cycling, Africa's only World Tour cycling team. I love technology as well. We're a team that is sponsored by technology companies, and I also worked in IT for 11 years post my cycling career. So I worked for IBM and for Microsoft for 11 years. And so, we see technology as an absolute enabler to help us move forwards and to make better decisions. And so, the whole virtual cycling platform is something that we've embraced for a couple of years. And I'm very happy to be a part of this webinar today. I'm
Olivier Senn. I'm the organizer of Tour of Switzerland, which has just done the Digital Swiss 5 in April as a first digital race. Myself, I'm not at all a technical freak. I have a roller, but it's just an old simple one, which I only use when the weather really forces me onto it. For me personally, it's about the future and where cycling can go and where we can use technology to develop, just as Doug said before. I think we had a bit of a fast start into this world. It would have taken probably a few years to get where we are right now, but that makes it even the more interesting, and looking forward to discussing it with you guys.
Thank you very much, everyone, for joining, and I'm really looking forward to learning everything about digital cycling with you. Olivier, you are the organizer of the Tour de Suisse, a UCI World Tour event in June, and as a Swiss, my heart broke when I learned that the race would be cancelled. Can you tell us more about how it happened and how you reacted?
Yes, it is, of course, something you don't envisage. You work a whole year or normally even longer to prepare an event, and then you have to cancel it a few weeks before it happens. For us, it was basically when we started thinking about having to cancel the Tour de Suisse, we also started to see what was going on in cycling, and that it's not just our problem, it's a problem of the whole cycling world. Teams don't have anything to race for, riders are locked into their apartments, and basically at the same time of thinking about how do we cancel Tour de Suisse, how do we actually survive a cancellation of our biggest event, we also thought about, well, there's a lot of others in the same situation. Maybe there is a chance to do something together that can help all involved in the sport. And so basically it very quickly switched from the sadness of having to cancel Tour de Suisse into the excitement and the sheer stress of organizing an event within 4 weeks. And we came together with the teams and Ruby, our digital platform, very quickly. Basically designed the whole Digital Swiss 5 concept in 4 weeks, and with having that concept, the discussions with our sponsors on the cancellation of Tour de Suisse took a completely different turn. It wasn't just about, oh, we have to cancel, but please still give us some money. We could go and say, we have to cancel Tour de Suisse, but we've got an alternative. We've got something where we can show you where we will be close to an event. We can be live on television, which no other sport could be at that time. So it was really a lot of things came together in a very difficult time that made it even the more successful, and basically was a big part in making sure we will have a future as a Tour de Suisse.
Well, thank you for these explanations, and maybe to show what it looked like, we have a little video taken from the Digital Swiss 5 that we can watch together now.
Jackman is in third position. Fine effort at the moment, albeit he's got about 50-60 meters to make up on Nicholas Roach on the descent. Oh, Nico's suffering a little bit. He's has some impressive gurning going on. He really knows how to suffer.
I didn't see this one coming, but it looks like Roach is Roach catching Rowan?
It's stabilized to around about 150, and then since then it's come down, but it looks as if Rowan Dennis has a bit in hand, but is he going to be able to hang on all the way to the flag? The other question is, can Roach possibly sustain this effort?
By the looks of Roach, I would be surprised if there's anything left there to lift that pace. He's just trying to get on terms with Rowan.
Inside the final 200 meters now, it's a cruise to the flag for the Team Ineos superstar that is Rowan Dennis. The World Time Trial champion has reflected his ability in perfect style this week, given Team Ineos 2 great wins on the week, and what a superb effort as he takes victory in the 5th and final race in the Digital Swiss 5. The virtual arms in the air, impassive expression from Rowan Dennis. He's delivered brilliantly and managed to hang on for what would ultimately be a victory by just under...
Well, this is digital cycling. I find this pretty cool, and definitely Nicholas Roach was not faking it, as we could see. And as a fan, I have to say that one thing that I discovered here was to see the athletes at home. You know, usually they are with their helmets and their glasses, and here you see them, you know, suffering and in an environment that we usually don't see. Speaking of athletes, now let's turn to Ashleigh. It seems that you embrace digital cycling. Tell us about how COVID-19 impacted you, and tell us all about the intricacies of digital racing, the tactics.
Yeah, well, of course, COVID-19, like many other people in the world, it hugely impacted my life and my ability to do my job. I live in Spain. Very quickly, it went from a rumor of a lockdown and thinking, you know, it's never going to impact us, to literally within 2 days being full lockdown. So I was put in the position where I had to adapt fast, and I thought, okay, Ashleigh, we're going to embrace the situation and make the most out of it. And And I've always kind of had a bit of a mind block to the indoor trainer because I've experienced it to be very hard. But as I said, I had no option. But luckily, I did have a very good indoor setup. So I had a Tax Neo Smart Trainer, and I had access to, in my case, I used Zwift predominantly. It became very clear to me quite early on that, wow, you know, this is actually something quite amazing, because suddenly, you know, it's opening up our world. You know, we have access to a whole new fan base or a whole new social connection, because usually if you were going to meet someone or connect with someone, you have to be in the same place at the same time. But now I can be on my indoor trainer in Spain, and I can start engaging with people that are in South America, in South Africa, in New York, in London. So suddenly, you know, it opens up a whole new world. So that's, I think, essentially what first really started to intrigue me. And so after 7 weeks of being restricted only to indoor training, I really found a new opportunity to grow in strength, you know, so my numbers were getting better. I did a performance test which showed an increase in my maximum power, you know, so that was motivation. I had met a whole lot of new people in the virtual world. I'd started creating a network of fans. I probably have had the best fan engagement I've ever experienced in my career, all in the virtual world.
Talking about the racing, how different is digital racing from real racing? What was your impression?
Well, yeah, I mean, digital racing is quite different to real world racing, because the tactical element can essentially be less important than it is in the real world. So it does often come down to numbers. For me, you know, it's been great to be able to smash it out on the indoor trainer. All the data and the analytics are available for your fans to see. So for a lot of people, it brings a new level of interest, because suddenly they see, wow, okay, the woman, they're holding pretty good watts per kilogram, for example, up a climb, you know, and suddenly it creates a whole new level of credibility for women cycling. You know, it's never going to replace real world cycling, as I said, but I think that it can be seen as potentially a different discipline. And it obviously takes the audience to embrace it, and the cyclists to embrace it, for it to really become something that's super exciting. But as I said to you, what's definitely opened my mind to it is the fact that it really opens the world to a whole new opportunity of fan engagement, and can play a very important role in developing women's cycling and helping us to be able to grow our fan base.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I should add that you dominated digital racing during this period with, amongst other, 3-stage victories in the Swift Tour for All, if I'm not mistaken. On the male side of the sports, the dominant force has certainly been NTT Pro Cycling, with victories in several races as well. So, Doug, your team, like all teams, has been hit hard by this COVID-19 crisis. What was it like, and did digital cycling come to the rescue?
It absolutely, definitely did. You know, after Paris-Nice, our major focus as a team was to get all of our riders and staff home safely and into the countries where they were living. And if you think today, you know, we are 29 riders sitting in 15 different countries. So none of us knew, you know, how long this pandemic was going to last, and the impact that it had on the individual. So to understand everybody's situations and scenarios and what they could do at home or not, we had to find all that out and engage with them. But Zwift as a platform, or, you know, virtual cycling as a platform, has been something that we've embraced for some time. I think as a team that it was grown out of South Africa, that then, you know, took on the rest of the world. We've always been a team that has used technology in certain ways, even just to collaborate with each other, more so than I guess most teams. So this didn't really, you know, this move into this virtual world was something that was a bit more easy for us, I think, than some other teams. But what it did create for us was an opportunity for us to be better and to work on our weaknesses. if you think that the cycling season has become longer and longer and longer, and the off season is so short now that the riders have a very little chance to improve their weaknesses, just because they're always in that function where they're racing and they're kind of, you know, going on in the race mode. So we used the virtual platform and the virtual world to keep our riders busy, but also to focus on our weaknesses. Our coaches have been incredibly busy looking at every single individual, because every rider has a different function in a team, and to try and improve either their threshold, their anaerobic capacity, coping with lactate, change of rhythm, accelerations, cadence. All of these things are things that we worked on. And then when it came to this virtual racing that happened, you know, from whether it was the Digital Swiss 5 or the, you know, on Ruvi, or the, you know, Tour for All on Zwift, it became, you know, a really nice opportunity for our riders, you know, to get stuck in and to enjoy something. You know, that was, you know, that I guess in their lockdown states. And we've seen that through this time, because our riders were working really hard on the virtual platforms anyway, some of our riders had their best 10, 20, 30-second power outputs, you know, from explosive power and bursts of speed. Because in the virtual world, you have to start fast and then just go faster. If you start slowly, the chances of you catching up again are limited. So it's about all in. And then even some of our other riders, you know, had their best 15 to 30 to 45 minute efforts that they'd ever achieved, you know, in the real world. So, you know, and when Michael Valgren comes to me and he says on that one virtual race on Zwift, and he said that that hour in the virtual world was harder than the last hour when I won Amstel Gold Race, then you know that this is a crazy world, and it is really tough, and it is worth it. And so, you know, it was something that absolutely passed the time for us. It was a way that we could connect with our riders around the world and keep them busy and improve on our weaknesses. And, you know, and it's something that'll never go away. So it's absolutely here to stay, and should be seen as an opportunity.
Well, to illustrate this, now let's watch a short video that your team did with some of its sponsors.
In the race, we have an integrated communication systems between the riders and the team car.
Our race radio communication is through one of our partners, Alcatel-Lucent Enterprise, the Rainbow platform.
The main goal is to outnumber our competitors at the finish line. We effectively are using their Rainbow secure communication system to have this network, this bubble. We had two simultaneous bubbles running, one with the riders in the race and the DS.
If you're feeling good, boys, try and follow and try and get some points here, try and upset Alpecin.
But then alongside that, overlapping that, we had a separate bubble. And at any one time that would have 2 to 3 coaches and 2 to 3 DSs, being able to view this data and actively use it in a way that influences our decisions as a support team and also the riders in the race.
NTT have bossed this from start to finish. They're the team that's going to take home the prize.
Don't let him hold your pace now, Louis. Go straight over the top. He's broken. His face is down.
It's mission critical communication, this, you know, and so it has to be clear. We prepare well.
Mikey's moment. This is Mikey's opportunity. Into the last kilometre. The breakaway burrito deployed.
Put it in now. Put it in. There's the finish. Let's go. Come on. Come on, Louis. There it is.
But here he is. NTT this week at the Zwift Tour for All have been reborn.
In fact, to be able to have support from your sponsors, from your partners that can add a tangible benefit to how we work as a team is the dream.
Well, there it was, the breakaway burrito, which is one of these power-ups in the Swift platform, and shows the gamification aspects of the sport, which is something very, very new and exciting. Now we'll turn to cycling's governing body with Adrien from the UCI. As we've seen, the impacts of the coronavirus has been huge on the sports. Everything has been basically brought to a halt. and the UCI has had to reshuffle calendars, review its financial plans. It's an incredible challenge. So can you tell us more about that, and where does digital cycling stand in there?
Yes, indeed, as you've said, as an organization, as a governing body for us, it's been quite a few challenging weeks, I would say, following the COVID-19 measures that have been taken by several governments worldwide. Of course, the first impact is in terms of racing, in terms of calendars, whereas you are a road cyclist, whereas you are a mountain bike rider, you indeed await for these calendars and for the upcoming events to arrive later this year. So most of the job of the UCI was to reach out to stakeholders and put everyone around the table to ensure that we would keep everyone's interest at heart and make the best out of it, to create new calendars and to create new opportunities to, I wouldn't say get back to normal, but at least to start again the cycling industry and the cycling as a sport. When it comes mostly for us as digital teams within the UCI and as promoting teams for our various disciplines, virtual cycling has been once again quite a good escape for us, because if you don't have any racing happening, if you don't have anything happening on your regular calendar, then you still have to tell stories to cycling fans, to cycling enthusiasts. And that was a real challenge, because of course everything as for teams, as for stakeholders, race organizers, everything's planned on a year-on-year basis, and then suddenly the plan is gone. So you need to ensure that you still keep the boat afloat. So what we did is that we somehow turned to virtual cycling to create new stories. Of course, you have this racing aspect that we've seen with the Tour de Suisse, with the new visibility that's been given to these races even on TV. I mean, if you turn to the Tour of Flanders, they've been broadcasted on Sportza, and it was like 600,000 views for the very edition of an e-race. So that's quite a promising number when it comes to viewership. But also it gave us the opportunity to reach out to riders, to reach out to teams, and to share a bit more of their story on a daily basis. I mean, everybody was facing the same situation. Everybody was trying to cope with it. And this was a good way for us to tell new stories to cycling fans. And this comes, for example, with Insta takeovers on the UCI accounts, where we follow the day of a cyclist or an athlete on our accounts. And you can see that indeed e-racing and virtual cycling is important to them, because it will keep them in shape, keep them focused on what will happen for the rest of the year. But once again, it's new ways of telling stories around cycling. So that's a very exciting time to live in. It might have sped up a bit the process, because of course we've been already discussing around virtual cycling as the UCI, especially with players like Zwift, and around the eSport cycling world champs that are meant to happen by the end of the year. Of course, once again, calendars have been challenged, so there are still details to be discussed. It also gave us the opportunity to hear the voice of some of our athletes, of our teams, of our commissions that I've mentioned, that e-cycling should also be something that should be put forward a bit more, and maybe a bit quicker than what was planned. So it's also great opportunities and new streams of communications with race organizer, with riders, to ensure that we kind of take into account this new way of cycling. And once again, it goes mainly for road, but it also can come in hand for mountain bike. And I've even seen I wouldn't call that virtual cycling, but a small home trainer for BMX freestyle riders, where you can try and recreate the tricks you would do on a flatland course. So that's also not really related to virtual, but it's how to cope with a situation on a home trainer. So yeah, once again, it's a great opportunity for us to start a new streams of conversation with our fans and cycling enthusiasts.
Thank you, Adrien. Thanks all for sharing your experience. Now let's move on to the second part, because until now it's been all about reacting to a crisis, and it's been mostly damage control. But we've also seen that there's certainly more than that. Digital cycling is an opportunity to grow the sport in the long term. But how? In other words, let's imagine a future where everyone will be out again, classic racing will have resumed. We all hope this will happen very, very soon. Where will digital cycling stand in there? And this time, let's start with Doug. Is your team going to keep winning digital races? Where will that stand in the big picture for you?
I think digital cycling is here to stay. I don't think it'll ever go away. I think it should be an entity that is run in conjunction with the real world of cycling and the outdoor world of cycling. They've done that in motorsport. And in fact, I think teams in the future potentially will bring on some esport riders to focus on that category, because it just creates an opportunity to connect with more people. Ashleigh mentioned it. You can connect with a new audience now, and we've already started to engage with that new audience now, and you cannot not continue to engage with them. It's something that we need to continue to do, and I think it adds a lot of value to our sponsors. I think the UCI could potentially put on an e-racing series that could potentially earn UCI points into the future once the platform is consistent and because the new generation of fans, the Generation Z, they care about authenticity, they care about consistency, and they care about sports and people that are a force for good, that do good things with it. And the nice part of the virtual cycling world is that you can couple charities to it, and you can raise money for certain things, which I think is amazing. And the real world of today, post this pandemic, and whatever hits us in the future, I think people really want to be more humane, and want to focus on things that are that really add a lot of value and have got a lot more depth. And it does just create that extra value for our partners, I think. And not only that, I mean, riders that are all around the world that have different weather conditions, different scenarios where they live, have now got a platform that they can use to train in. They can do it on their active rest rides, during the season. If you live in the altitude and you want to do an easier ride, you can use a virtual platform to do that and engage and connect with people. So, even our team, for a team time trial, we used a virtual platform to do the protocol of a team time trial as a team, in a stage race. So there's various ways that you can use the virtual platform today, but ultimately great exposure for partners. Additionally, connect with a new audience that can engage with you. It's not a one-dimensional TV. They can interact and write messages and get responses. So I think it's a really nice platform that is absolutely here to stay. And I look forward to it being a part of our roster, our calendar, and the future of cycling for sure.
Well, talking about connecting with an audience, Ashleigh, I think you see digital cycling as an opportunity to grow women's pro racing. Can you tell us more about that? Yeah, well, I've certainly identified the potential of virtual cycling, and it is something that I've committed to longer term. So, for example, later today, I have a women's ride on Zwift in collaboration with Liv, which is every Monday at 5 p.m. CET. And I've just experienced such amazing engagement with a female fan base. I've just seen how taking part in these rides with these women, how it breaks down a whole lot of barriers which previously existed. So, often women feel somehow intimidated, or they feel like they're going to hold you back, or maybe they might embarrass themselves, or whatever reason they might have. There's always been barriers, So in order for women's cycling to engage a female fan base, there's always been these barriers. And just having engaged in these ladies' rides, for example, on Zwift, I've started to realize that it creates such a great opportunity to engage with a female fan base. And I make an effort to engage with them. So to chat and to socialize and to answer their questions. And the questions range from anything like, how do I climb better out of my saddle, to what are you making for dinner tonight? So it just shows that it's a great platform where we suddenly start to reach, what the female fan base is looking for. They're looking for community, they're looking for an opportunity to learn, but also just to engage in casual conversation. And suddenly the women feel that much more, they have that much more confidence, because they're in the safety of their own home. So, for a lot of women, and
particularly, I can say this firsthand, a lot of women, for example, in South Africa, there's a massive barrier in terms of, cycling because of the safety aspect of the road, and I think that this presents a great opportunity for young talent, for example, to have a safe platform to be able to train and to grow their talent. But for any woman all around the world, where they're in the safety of their home, so they don't feel intimidated by cars or even having a puncture, that's quite intimidating for a woman, because although we might know how to change the puncture, sometimes the physical strength required to change a puncture is not that easy. And then not only that, suddenly they also feel much more confident, because they don't feel scared that they might be embarrassed or that they might hold someone up, And the other interesting thing, for example, of the virtual world, is that usually if you would have a ride with your fan, the fan next to you and maybe the one directly behind can hear what you're saying. But the rest of the people in the group don't hear what you're saying. So all of a sudden, when you're riding on Zwift, you can be riding with 80 ladies, and maybe some of them can't keep up or some go ahead. But the reality is they can all engage. And I've already touched on the fact that I believe that virtual racing presents a great opportunity for women's cycling. So if I just look at the engagement I received and the reaction I received after my participation in the Tour for All, which actually, to be totally honest, is the first ever opportunity for women's cycling where we got equal coverage and opportunity as the men. So we raced the same races, same distances on the same courses, and we got equal exposure on mainstream platforms like Eurosport and GCN. So for the first time in my career, it's crazy. I got the most engagement and the biggest reaction, the most followers from taking part in a virtual race. So it sounds a bit weird, I've podiumed before on a world tour podium in the road, but actually I got more interest from winning virtual races. So yeah, I definitely see it as a new discipline that should complement road cycling. I think the COVID crisis really showed cycling that we need to, road cycling in particular, that we need to diversify, we need to open our minds to new opportunities. And I certainly believe that digital cycling can only complement road cycling going into the future.
Well, thanks, Ashleigh. It's very exciting to see all the opportunities for the athletes and for women's cycling as well. We talked about the races. I turn to Olivier now. Olivier, is there going to be further editions of the Swiss Digital 5, the Digital Swiss 5, even when you can organize real races again?
It's a good question. It's certainly something we're thinking about very hard, because what we also believe, just as Doug and Ashleigh said, digital cycling is here to stay. But we'll have to find the way and the place where digital cycling will fit in with the real racing on the road. What's very interesting for us is, and I bring something up that Doug said before, there's a completely different audience to these digital races compared to the normal races, which is super interesting for us. We're a very traditional cycle racer, Tour of Suisse. We always say, a bit jokingly, but every additional year we produce a Tour de Suisse, our audience gets a year older, because we have a lot of older people watching the real racing alongside the road, but also on television. And now we did Digital Swiss 5, and we see the structure of the audience completely turn itself around. The highest number of viewers were in the category of 25 to 35, which is a dream for every organizer and for every sponsor. And for us, it's important to find ways to combine the traditional racing with the digital racing. One way is certainly to run it as a separate discipline in cycling, and do whatever we can with that, from racing series to world championships. Certainly the whole equality topic is easier to reach there, because we're all starting at the same point. We're all starting at zero, basically, around the year 2020, and there's not a 100-year history behind which we have to work on. But for us, and I think that's where we as an organizer maybe look also a bit differently at it. For us, it's also a way to combine the amateur cyclists with the professionals. We don't believe as an organizer, cycling as an event organizer will be financially sustainable just based on sponsors in the future. With new audience, we might have a chance, but we will have to connect professional cycling with amateur cyclists, with the keen, hardcore cycling fans more. And that's where digital cycling will help us a lot, because they can, as Ashleigh said, I mean, the social aspect of it all is fantastic. They can mix with each other, they can talk to each other, they compare each other's races and rides. And for us, that's the direction we are thinking. You know, how can we get more of this? I'm not saying they're going to race each other, but they can ride each other. Maybe there will be an amateur event at the real Tour de Suisse, but the amateur event will be on rollers. Maybe we'll have a few pros riding with the amateurs on site in a stadium. We don't know. You know, this is our big focus for the future. Find this connection between the amateurs and the professionals, bring them closer together, and connect the amateurs even stronger to the event and the athletes. But, you know, very simply said, we have got the whole world ahead of us in digital cycling. We've only just started. You've seen it on those pictures of Digital Swiss 5. I'm sure in 5 or 10 years, I'm going to be embarrassed looking at those pictures, because it's so, you know, it's almost hammering the scenes in stone into this TV picture. It's so basic, but that also means there's so much to do and to develop. And that's what's exciting about it. And hopefully we will all, and I really mean, that's what Ashleigh said before, we will all profit from it. Cyclists, teams, organizers, UCI. This is something we can develop from start all together and make cycling better in this way. And I'm looking forward to that. And I hope we can be part of it and keep working together.
Thank you, Olivier. That's indeed very exciting. Now we'll finish with Adrien from the UCI, because the core mission of an international federation is to develop the sports. So the question is digital cycling a way for the UCI to fulfill this mission? And well, I think we all know the answer is basically yes, but maybe can you tell us how it could look like? You know, is this a new discipline like stage racing, criteriums, or one-day racing? Are there going to be UCI World Digital Cycling Championships? Is there a rule book? Tell us.
What we're working on at the moment. As everybody said, that's a new opportunity. We are day one of a new era of cycling, whether it is on road, whether it is on dirt, whether it is on virtual. So that's definitely a new landscape to shape. So that's very, very exciting for everyone. The key for us will, of course, to be and embrace as much as all of the opportunities and challenges that we'll face in the upcoming months and years. Indeed, there's a strong sports aspect to be determined. And you've said there's the rule book, there's how to ensure that everything, if there is an e-series to happen, or if of course there is the e-cycling world championships to be organized, how to make sure that we keep fairness between all participants and that the spirit of the sports is kept safe. So indeed, that's a huge chunk of work to do for us at the UCI on the sports aspect. I mean, everybody's talked about that, whether it is Doug, Ashleigh, or Olivier. Everybody could benefit from this new situation and should benefit from this situation, whether it is from an engagement perspective with the fan, whether it is from a financial perspective for race organizers, teams, riders, sponsors, and so on. So that's I wouldn't say the Far West, because it's not as dangerous as it was exploring the US in the 1800s, but that's definitely a new era to be open into cycling. And what was said by Doug and Ashleigh and Olivier was very true regarding audiences and engagement, because one of the key challenges challenges for cycling, and especially road cycling, when it comes to big tours or monuments, is to kind of renew the audience, or maybe not renew, but open new streams of audiences, trying to reach out to the youngsters, trying to reach out to cycling enthusiasts, to amateurs, and that link that hasn't been created yet within all of these worlds. Well, virtual cycling could be one of them. It opens new ways of thinking when it comes to presenting the performance of an athlete. It opens new ways of communicating with them as well. And engagement, as they've said, Ashleigh especially, and Doug, as they've said, is key, because that's the era we're in, and we cannot just think that cycling will be a stream of information that will come top down to the cycling fan, and we need to cope with the fact that now everybody's talking on social, everybody's talking all together. Barriers are being broken down between rider, athletes, their fans, cycling enthusiasts, and so on. So that's definitely, especially for me on my side on digital and I would say storytelling and trying to promote cycling, that's definitely something I wish that will stay, and that will be great opportunity for us to reach out to everybody who's interested in cycling.
Thank you, Adrien. Thank you, everyone. I think we learned a lot about digital cycling, virtual racing with you. I definitely learned a lot. And I think it shows the resilience of the sport and its players when faced with a deep crisis like the one we are going through at the moment. But it also shows that the future is bright for cycling, be it on the roads, on the trails, or on smart trainers. So I'd like to thank you again for participating. Wish you good luck for the future. Stay safe, and see you soon on the roads, we all hope. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.